Imagine a prison where the echoes of history still linger, walls that once held some of the most infamous figures in American history, including those tied to one of the nation's darkest days, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Welcome to Arsenal Penitentiary, a site where justice, tragedy, and history collide. Arsenal Penitentiary, constructed in 1831, stands as one of the earliest federal penitentiaries in the United States, located on Greenleaf Point, a strategically important peninsula at the confluence of the Potomac and Anacostia rivers in Washington, D.C. The choice of location was far from arbitrary. Greenleaf Point had been a site of military significance even before the penitentiary was built. During the War of 1812, the area had been used as a site for defensive fortifications to protect the capital from British attacks. By the early 19th century, as the federal government began to expand its institutions in the young nation's capital, the site became ideal for a secure detention facility, combining relative isolation with proximity to governmental and military centers. The establishment of the penitentiary reflected the broader federal approach to incarceration during the early 1800s, when the United States was experimenting with the role of prisons in society. The penitentiary was constructed under the oversight of the federal government, which sought a facility that could house individuals who required strict supervision, including military prisoners, political detainees, and later, during crises, high-profile criminals. The architecture and layout of the penitentiary were designed to emphasize security, discipline, and order. Thick brick walls, guard towers, and strategically placed cell blocks were combined to prevent escape and maintain control over the inmates. Its design reflected contemporary penal philosophies that prioritized containment and moral reform, which were central to early American approaches to imprisonment. The penitentiary's location on Greenleaf Point offered several practical advantages. Being bordered by water on two sides, the site was naturally isolated, making escape difficult. Its position at the tip of the peninsula allowed guards to monitor the surrounding area effectively and reduced the likelihood of outside interference. At the same time, its proximity to Fort McNair, then a key military installation, and the political heart of the nation allowed for rapid communication with federal authorities and ensured that high-security prisoners could be transferred or monitored without extensive logistical challenges. This dual purpose, security and accessibility, made Greenleaf Point a critical choice for the penitentiary. Construction of Arsenal Penitentiary began during a period when the federal government was expanding its role in law enforcement and military operations. Washington, D.C., as the capital, required secure facilities to detain individuals whose crimes or perceived threats extended beyond the local jurisdiction. The penitentiary was envisioned not only as a holding facility but also as a place where inmates could be subjected to regimented routines, labor, and moral instruction. The early 19th century philosophy of imprisonment often combined punishment with attempts at moral correction, reflecting societal beliefs that crime could be remedied through discipline and structured confinement. As such, the physical environment of Arsenal Penitentiary was deliberately austere, with minimal comforts and an emphasis on order, routine, and visibility, ensuring that inmates' actions were closely monitored at all times. In addition to its architectural and operational features, the establishment of the penitentiary was influenced by the broader socio-political context of the era. The early 1800s in the United States were a time of significant social change, territorial expansion, and occasional civil unrest. The federal government recognized the need for a secure institution capable of detaining individuals who might pose threats to national security or public order. By situating the penitentiary in Washington, D.C., federal authorities could assert control over politically sensitive prisoners and respond quickly to crises. This foresight would later prove critical during the Civil War, when the facility's strategic location and robust construction allowed it to serve as a secure military prison. The choice of Greenleaf Point also underscores the intersection of geography, military planning, and penal theory in the early United States. Its peninsular location not only provided a natural barrier but also allowed the federal government to exert authority over prisoners in a controlled environment, minimizing the risk of external influence or rescue attempts. The surrounding water acted as both a literal and symbolic separation between those confined within the penitentiary and the rest of the city, reinforcing the notion that serious offenders or politically sensitive detainees were under the direct control of the federal government. Over the decades, the location and construction of Arsenal Penitentiary would become historically significant for reasons far beyond its original intent. Its isolated yet accessible positioning made it a site of national consequence during the Civil War and in the aftermath of President Abraham Lincoln's assassination. The penitentiary's architecture and location ensured that it could securely contain some of the most notorious figures in American history, including conspirators whose actions shook the nation to its core. Today, understanding the establishment and strategic placement of Arsenal Penitentiary provides insight into the early federal government's approach to incarceration, security, and the management of high-profile prisoners, revealing how geography, architecture, and political necessity converged to create a facility of enduring historical importance. As the United States descended into the Civil War in 1861, Arsenal Penitentiary's role shifted dramatically from a standard federal prison to a military detention facility, reflecting the unprecedented challenges of wartime incarceration. The penitentiary, strategically located on Greenleaf Point in Washington, D.C., became a key asset for the Union government, tasked with securely holding prisoners whose activities threatened national security during one of the most turbulent periods in American history. Its transition illustrates how physical infrastructure and strategic planning intersected with national priorities in moments of crisis. During the Civil War, Washington, D.C., was not only the seat of the federal government but also a city under constant threat from Confederate forces. The Union needed secure facilities to detain captured Confederate soldiers, spies, and sympathizers, as well as individuals suspected of engaging in sabotage, espionage, or subversive activity. Arsenal Penitentiary's fortified structure, isolated location, and proximity to military installations made it an ideal site for such a purpose. Unlike many civilian prisons of the era, it could withstand external attacks and was under direct federal control, ensuring that prisoners with political or military significance were closely monitored and securely contained. The facility became known for housing high-profile detainees, including Confederate officers, secret agents, and others deemed threats to the Union. These individuals were often held under strict surveillance, with guards and military personnel maintaining rigorous routines to prevent escape or external rescue attempts. The penitentiary cells, corridors, and work areas were designed for both containment and observation, reflecting the military's emphasis on discipline and control. Inmates were subjected to structured daily routines, including labor, strict schedules, and limited interaction, underscoring the penitentiary's dual role as both a correctional and a security facility. The Civil War also heightened the symbolic significance of Arsenal Penitentiary. It became more than just a detention center. It represented the federal government's ability to enforce authority during wartime, even in the nation's capital. Its presence sent a clear message: the Union would not tolerate dissent or subversive activity, and those who threatened national unity would face strict confinement. This was particularly important given Washington's proximity to Confederate sympathizers in Maryland and Virginia, as well as ongoing concerns about sabotage or infiltration within the city itself. The penitentiary thus served both practical and psychological functions, reinforcing federal power while securely managing potentially dangerous prisoners. One of the most notable aspects of Arsenal Penitentiary's Civil War role was its adaptability. Originally constructed as a federal prison, the facility was quickly modified to meet the unique demands of wartime detention. Security measures were intensified, guard routines were formalized, and the administration adjusted to handle a growing influx of prisoners with varying legal and military statuses. Confederate prisoners of war were often separated from civilian detainees or those accused of political crimes, ensuring that the facility could manage diverse populations effectively. This adaptability demonstrated the foresight of the prison's design and the federal government's capacity to repurpose infrastructure in response to evolving national needs. The penitentiary also became a site of high tension and historical consequence during the war. As Union authorities dealt with the complexities of military justice, espionage trials, and the imprisonment of politically significant figures, Arsenal Penitentiary evolved into a symbol of wartime governance. Its walls held individuals whose actions had the potential to alter the course of the conflict or undermine the Union cause. Guards and administrators faced constant pressure to maintain order while ensuring that the penitentiary remained secure from both internal unrest and external threats. Furthermore, the Civil War period at Arsenal Penitentiary highlights the intersection of military necessity and legal authority. Prisoners were often held under military orders rather than civilian legal processes, reflecting the extraordinary powers assumed by the federal government during wartime. This created a unique environment in which security, law, and morality intersected, leaving a lasting imprint on the history of federal detention practices. Lessons learned during this period would later influence the management of high-security federal prisons, particularly those tasked with housing politically sensitive or high-risk inmates. In summary, Arsenal Penitentiary's role during the Civil War exemplifies its strategic importance and historical significance. It was more than just a physical structure. It became a critical tool for national security, a symbol of federal authority, and a site where the challenges of wartime incarceration were navigated with vigilance, discipline, and adaptability. The penitentiary's function during this period set the stage for its later, more infamous role in the aftermath of President Lincoln's assassination, proving that its walls were not only meant to contain individuals but also to protect a nation in crisis. Perhaps the most infamous chapter in the history of Arsenal Penitentiary revolves around the conspirators of President Abraham Lincoln's assassination. Following the tragic events of April 14, 1865, when John Wilkes Booth fatally shot Lincoln at Ford's Theater, the nation was thrown into shock and outrage. The federal government acted swiftly, capturing those implicated in the plot to murder the president, including Booth's co-conspirators who had played crucial roles in planning and executing the broader scheme. These individuals were held at Arsenal Penitentiary, a facility that had proven capable of securely housing high-profile and politically sensitive prisoners during the Civil War. Among the most notable detainees was Mary Surratt, a boarding house owner whose property had been used to plan aspects of the assassination. Surratt became historically significant as the first woman executed by the U.S. federal government, marking a somber milestone in American legal history. Alongside her, Lewis Powell, also known as Lewis Payne, David Harold, and George Atzerodt were held for their roles in the conspiracy. Each of these prisoners brought unique elements to the story. Powell attempted to assassinate Secretary of State William Seward, Atzerodt targeted Vice President Andrew Johnson, and Harold assisted Booth in his escape. The incarceration of these conspirators at Arsenal Penitentiary was a deliberate choice, reflecting the government's desire to tightly control and monitor individuals whose crimes had shaken the nation. The penitentiary's walls, corridors, and cells became a backdrop for intense scrutiny and deliberation. The prisoners were kept under constant surveillance, their movements restricted and closely monitored by guards trained in military discipline. The atmosphere inside was tense and foreboding, as these individuals awaited trial for one of the most consequential crimes in American history. Unlike ordinary prisoners, their detention was not only a matter of public safety but also of national symbolism. The government needed to demonstrate that justice would be administered swiftly and decisively in response to such an unprecedented act of political violence. Arsenal Penitentiary's role in housing the conspirators highlights the facility's dual significance. It was both a practical solution for secure detention and a symbol of federal authority. By keeping the conspirators under strict military supervision, the government could ensure that no further attempts at violence or rescue would occur while the legal proceedings unfolded. The penitentiary, with its fortified construction and controlled environment, provided the ideal setting for such high-stakes incarceration, balancing the need for security with the demands of public attention and historical record. The presence of these prisoners also underscores the intersection of law, politics, and morality in post-Civil War America. The nation grappled with questions about justice, accountability, and the proper treatment of those involved in politically motivated crimes. The trials that followed their detention at Arsenal Penitentiary drew enormous public and media attention, and the outcome would leave a lasting imprint on the country's approach to federal executions and high-profile criminal justice. The penitentiary, therefore, was not merely a backdrop but an active participant in the unfolding historical drama, serving as a controlled environment where the government could uphold the rule of law amid intense public scrutiny. In addition, the incarceration of Lincoln's assassination conspirators at Arsenal Penitentiary exemplifies the facility's broader historical role as a site of national consequence. The decision to hold these prisoners at Greenleaf Point was informed by its previous use as a secure military prison during the Civil War, demonstrating continuity in its function as a place for containing high-risk detainees. Its fortified walls, isolated location, and proximity to military oversight ensured that even the most determined attempts at escape or interference would be nearly impossible, reinforcing the penitentiary's reputation as one of the most secure facilities in the country at that time. Ultimately, the detention of the Lincoln assassination conspirators at Arsenal Penitentiary represents a convergence of security, justice, and historical significance. It was here that Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, David Harold, and George Atzerodt were held, awaiting their fate and becoming enduring symbols of the consequences of political violence. Their imprisonment within the penitentiary's walls transformed Greenleaf Point from a mere military facility into a historical landmark, forever linked to one of the darkest and most pivotal moments in American history. The penitentiary thus stands as a testament to the role of federal institutions in maintaining order, enforcing justice, and shaping the nation's response to acts that threaten the very fabric of the United States. The climax of the Lincoln assassination saga at Arsenal Penitentiary came on July 7, 1865, when the federal government carried out the execution of 4 convicted conspirators. This event marked one of the most significant and somber moments in the history of the penitentiary, underscoring both its role as a secure detention facility and its place in the nation's collective memory. The executions were not only a legal necessity but also a symbolic demonstration of justice in response to an unprecedented political crime that had shaken the United States to its core. The 4 conspirators, Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, David Harold, and George Atzerodt, had been tried by a military tribunal in the weeks following Lincoln's assassination. Each was found guilty of participating in the plot to kill the president and other key government officials. Their sentencing to death by hanging reflected the gravity of their crimes, as well as the federal government's determination to send a strong message about accountability and the rule of law during a period of national mourning and reconstruction. The decision to execute the prisoners at Arsenal Penitentiary was deliberate, taking advantage of the penitentiary's secure and isolated location to prevent any interference or potential rescue attempts. Preparation for the execution was meticulous and highly controlled. Arsenal Penitentiary's staff, under close supervision from military authorities, ensured that the event would proceed without incident. The gallows were constructed within the prison grounds, away from the public eye but close enough for official witnesses, including military officers and government representatives, to observe. Guards maintained strict vigilance, knowing the high-profile nature of the prisoners and the intense public interest surrounding the executions. Security measures were at their highest, reflecting the penitentiary's dual purpose as both a detention facility and a site of national historical significance. The executions themselves were carried out in the early morning hours, reflecting a practice common in the 19th century intended to minimize public spectacle while maintaining order. Each conspirator faced the gallows with a combination of fear, resignation, and defiance. Mary Surratt's execution in particular drew widespread attention and controversy, as she became the first woman executed by the U.S. federal government. Her death highlighted not only the penitentiary's role in enforcing justice but also the broader societal debates about morality, gender, and punishment during a period of national trauma. The execution of Lewis Powell, David Harold, and George Atzerodt followed, each of whom had been directly implicated in various aspects of the assassination plot. Powell's attempted murder of Secretary of State William Seward, Atzerodt's planned attack on Vice President Andrew Johnson, and Harold's assistance in Booth's flight made their roles especially notorious. Arsenal Penitentiary, with its controlled environment, ensured that these executions were conducted efficiently and securely, reinforcing the facility's reputation as a place where the most dangerous or politically significant prisoners could be managed without incident. These executions were historically significant not only for their immediate legal implications but also for their symbolic resonance. Arsenal Penitentiary became a site where justice and national authority were visibly asserted in response to a crime that had threatened the very stability of the federal government. The executions represented closure for a grieving nation and demonstrated the federal government's commitment to punishing those who sought to undermine its leadership through violence. The penitentiary's walls, once silent observers of daily incarceration, now bore witness to an event that would echo through American history for generations. In addition, the executions at Arsenal Penitentiary highlighted the interplay between law, military authority, and national politics. The use of a military tribunal to try the conspirators reflected the extraordinary circumstances of the assassination and the urgency felt by the federal government to administer justice. Holding the executions within the penitentiary's secure grounds minimized the risk of external interference and emphasized the controlled, orderly exercise of authority in a period of national crisis. The penitentiary, therefore, was not merely a backdrop. It was an essential instrument in the process of enforcing the law and asserting federal power. Ultimately, the execution of the Lincoln assassination conspirators transformed Arsenal Penitentiary into a historic landmark, forever linked to one of the most tragic and consequential events in American history. The facility's role in this chapter demonstrates its enduring significance as more than just a prison. It became a place where national justice, historical memory, and the federal government's authority intersected in a dramatic and unforgettable way. The events of July 7, 1865, left an indelible mark on the penitentiary and ensured that it would be remembered not only as a site of detention but also as a pivotal location in the story of the United States' response to political violence. Arsenal Penitentiary holds a unique place in American history, not merely as a site of confinement, but as a symbol of the nation's struggles, transformations, and evolving notions of justice. Its significance extends beyond its physical walls at Greenleaf Point, reaching into the broader narrative of the United States during a period of profound turmoil and change. From its establishment in 1831 to its role in the aftermath of President Lincoln's assassination, the penitentiary reflects the intersection of law, politics, and society at moments when the nation's future hung in the balance. One of the most compelling aspects of its historical significance lies in its role during the Civil War. Arsenal Penitentiary was more than just a holding facility for ordinary prisoners. It became a strategic asset for the Union, housing Confederate soldiers, spies, and other detainees whose actions had the potential to influence the outcome of the war. In this capacity, the penitentiary exemplified the federal government's approach to security and control during a national crisis. Its isolated yet accessible location made it an ideal place to detain individuals whose movements required constant monitoring, while also providing a tangible symbol of federal authority within the nation's capital. The penitentiary's connection to the Lincoln assassination conspirators further elevates its historical importance. By holding and executing figures such as Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, David Harold, and George Atzerodt, Arsenal Penitentiary became a site where justice was administered in response to one of the most shocking acts of political violence in American history. The executions carried out within its walls not only ensured accountability but also underscored the federal government's capacity to enforce the law during a period of profound national trauma. This episode cemented the penitentiary's place in the historical record, linking it directly to events that shaped the post-Civil War nation. In addition to its immediate legal and political roles, Arsenal Penitentiary provides insight into the evolution of the American penal system. Its construction, design, and operation reflected early 19th century ideas about imprisonment, security, and moral reform. Thick walls, controlled cell blocks, and regimented routines embodied a philosophy that sought to combine punishment with discipline, while the penitentiary's later adaptations during wartime illustrate the flexibility and strategic planning inherent in federal detention practices. The facility serves as an early example of how the federal government approached incarceration, particularly for high-profile or politically sensitive prisoners, a model that influenced the development of subsequent federal prisons and military detention centers. Furthermore, Arsenal Penitentiary's historical significance is tied to its symbolic role in American memory. The penitentiary's association with the assassination of Lincoln and the execution of his conspirators transforms it from a mere prison into a site of national reflection and remembrance. It embodies themes of justice, retribution, and the consequences of political violence, serving as a tangible reminder of the challenges the United States faced in maintaining order and protecting its leaders during one of its most turbulent eras. Its walls, once witnesses to fear, despair, and discipline, now stand as silent markers of a past that continues to shape the nation's understanding of law, authority, and morality. The penitentiary also illustrates the interplay between federal authority and local geography. By situating such a significant facility at Greenleaf Point, authorities ensured that prisoners of national importance were kept under secure, centralized control, minimizing the risk of escape or public interference. This careful planning highlights the foresight of early federal administrators and the importance placed on physical infrastructure in the maintenance of political and social stability. Arsenal Penitentiary, therefore, was both a practical instrument of governance and a symbol of the federal government's reach and capability. In summary, the historical significance of Arsenal Penitentiary lies in its dual identity as both a functional institution and a symbol of national authority. From housing wartime prisoners to detaining the conspirators of Lincoln's assassination, the facility played a pivotal role in moments of crisis and transformation. Its existence and operations reveal much about the priorities, strategies, and values of the United States during the 19th century, providing historians, scholars, and the public with a lens through which to understand the complex interplay of law, politics, and history. The penitentiary is not merely a relic of the past. It is a living testament to the ways in which institutions of justice can shape, respond to, and reflect the broader currents of national life. Beyond its notoriety as the site of Lincoln assassination conspirators' detention and execution, Arsenal Penitentiary served a broader and vital role in the federal government's military and administrative operations. From its earliest days, the facility was envisioned not only as a prison but as a secure arm of federal authority, capable of managing individuals who posed threats to public safety, national security, or government stability. Its strategic design, robust construction, and location at Greenleaf Point made it uniquely suited for these responsibilities, bridging the realms of incarceration, military oversight, and political control. During the Civil War, the penitentiary was transformed into a key military prison, housing Confederate soldiers, spies, and others whose detention required strict supervision. The Union government recognized that ordinary civilian facilities were inadequate for managing high-risk prisoners or those whose actions had direct implications for the war effort. Arsenal Penitentiary's proximity to Fort McNair and other military installations allowed for rapid coordination with the Federal Military Command, ensuring that sensitive operations involving prisoners could be carried out efficiently. Its fortified walls and isolated location also reduced the likelihood of escape or interference, providing the government with a reliable facility to contain individuals of strategic concern. The penitentiary's military and governmental use extended beyond wartime confinement. It functioned as a centralized facility where high-profile prisoners, including political detainees and those accused of crimes against federal authority, could be securely monitored. This role was particularly important in Washington, D.C., where the stakes of public security were high and the visibility of federal authority was constant. By controlling access to such a secure facility, the government maintained both the physical and symbolic assertion of its power, demonstrating that no individual, regardless of status or political connection, was beyond the reach of the law. Arsenal Penitentiary also played a crucial role in supporting federal judicial processes. For instance, the detention of Lincoln assassination conspirators involved careful coordination between military authorities, judges, and prison officials. The penitentiary was not simply a passive holding facility, it was an active participant in the enforcement of military justice. Guards, administrators, and military officers all worked in concert to ensure that prisoners remained secure, trials could proceed without disruption, and executions were conducted in a controlled, orderly manner. This integration of prison administration with federal and military functions illustrates how Arsenal Penitentiary served as more than a detention center. It was an extension of governmental authority. Additionally, the facility's military use included routine oversight of potentially dangerous individuals whose behavior posed threats to the federal government. The structured routines, restricted movement, and intensive surveillance within the penitentiary reflected military discipline and organizational efficiency. In this sense, the penitentiary functioned as both a punitive institution and a strategic tool, allowing authorities to manage individuals whose actions could have broad consequences for national security. This dual function highlighted the federal government's capacity to adapt institutional resources to meet the demands of extraordinary circumstances, particularly during periods of national crisis. Arsenal Penitentiary's government role also included administrative oversight of security practices in the nation's capital. The facility served as a model for the secure management of high-profile prisoners, demonstrating effective strategies for preventing escape, maintaining order, and enforcing accountability. Its use underscored the federal government's commitment to maintaining a visible presence of authority, especially during moments of national emergency, and provided a blueprint for subsequent federal and military detention practices in the United States. In essence, the military and government use of Arsenal Penitentiary exemplifies the broader significance of secure federal institutions. It was a site where law, military strategy, and national governance converged, allowing authorities to exercise control over prisoners of critical importance while simultaneously asserting the power and legitimacy of the federal government. Its operational history demonstrates that the penitentiary was not merely a passive containment facility. It was an active, functioning tool of statecraft, essential for maintaining order, administering justice, and projecting authority during a time when the nation faced internal division and unprecedented threats to its stability. By understanding the military and governmental role of Arsenal Penitentiary, we gain insight into how physical infrastructure and institutional design were leveraged by federal authorities to meet the complex demands of national security. The penitentiary's legacy in this regard extends beyond the Civil War era, influencing how high-security federal facilities would be managed in the decades to follow and cementing its place in the broader history of the United States as both a site of incarceration and a critical instrument of federal power. The legacy of Arsenal Penitentiary extends far beyond its original function as a federal prison and military detention facility. Though the penitentiary no longer operates today, its historical, cultural, and institutional significance continues to resonate, offering a window into the evolution of American justice, federal authority, and national memory. From its construction in 1831 to its role in one of the nation's most infamous political crimes, the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, the penitentiary has left an enduring mark on the fabric of U.S. history. One of the most enduring aspects of its legacy lies in its role as a site of historical memory. Arsenal Penitentiary became intrinsically linked to the events surrounding Lincoln's assassination, housing conspirators such as Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, David Herold, and George Atzerodt. The executions carried out within its walls on July 7, 1865 represent a pivotal moment in the nation's response to political violence and the assertion of federal authority. The penitentiary thus serves as a tangible reminder of how the United States confronted extraordinary challenges in the pursuit of justice, and it remains a symbol of the weight and consequences of actions that threaten the stability of government and society. Beyond its symbolic significance, Arsenal Penitentiary's legacy is reflected in its impact on the development of federal detention practices. Its architecture, operations, and adaptability during crises provided a model for future high-security federal prisons. The facility demonstrated the importance of combining physical security, structured oversight, and strategic location to manage prisoners deemed especially dangerous or politically sensitive. Lessons learned from its use influenced the design and administration of later penitentiaries, shaping the standards for federal incarceration and the treatment of high-profile detainees. In this way, Arsenal Penitentiary helped establish principles that continue to inform the management of secure facilities in the United States. The penitentiary's legacy also highlights the intersection of law, military authority, and societal expectations. By functioning as a military prison during the Civil War and hosting the trials and executions of Lincoln assassination conspirators, the facility illustrated how federal institutions can operate under extraordinary circumstances to uphold justice and maintain order. Its history provides insight into the complexities of applying legal and military authority in moments of national crisis, shedding light on the balancing act between punishment, security, and public accountability. This aspect of its legacy remains relevant today, offering historical context for discussions about federal detention, political crimes, and the administration of justice. In addition, Arsenal Penitentiary serves as a reminder of the human stories within historical events. Behind the thick walls and secure gates were individuals whose lives intersected with some of the most dramatic and consequential moments in American history. From the Confederate soldiers detained during the Civil War to the conspirators of Lincoln's assassination, the penitentiary housed people whose experiences reflect both the harsh realities of imprisonment and the broader social, political, and moral issues of the era. By studying its history, we gain a deeper understanding of how national events shape individual lives and how institutions like Arsenal Penitentiary mediate that intersection. The penitentiary's legacy is further reinforced by its lasting presence in historical scholarship and public memory. Historians, educators, and authors continue to examine Arsenal Penitentiary not merely as a prison but as a critical site where the nation confronted the challenges of civil war, political violence, and the administration of justice. Its story offers enduring lessons about the importance of institutional preparedness, the role of federal authority, and the ways in which places of confinement can acquire profound historical and symbolic meaning. Finally, Arsenal Penitentiary's enduring legacy lies in its capacity to connect the past to the present. Its walls, corridors, and history serve as a reminder of the fragility of political stability and the responsibilities of governance. The facility illustrates how physical infrastructure, strategic planning, and disciplined oversight can support national security and justice. More importantly, it stands as a testament to the enduring power of history to shape collective memory, inform contemporary policy, and provide insight into the ethical and practical challenges faced by those entrusted with maintaining law and order. In conclusion, the legacy of Arsenal Penitentiary is multifaceted, encompassing historical significance, institutional influence, symbolic resonance, and human experience. Though it no longer functions as an active facility, its imprint on American history is indelible. From the Civil War to the Lincoln assassination, from military detention to the evolution of federal incarceration, Arsenal Penitentiary remains a powerful reminder of the complex interplay between justice, authority, and historical memory, a legacy that continues to inform and inspire understanding of the nation's past.